Diplomacy at its heart is about keeping the doors open even when the atmosphere is rancid, and that is why I find the modern fashion for snubbing visiting leaders such a cheap and foolish exercise. It scores a headline, it gives the illusion of moral purity, but it rips up one of the one commodity of diplomacy that is so needed, the opportunity. We saw it last year when Rishi Sunak, or was it the year before, when Rishi Sunak cancelled a meeting with the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis after he mentioned the Parthenon marbles on the BBC. It was a petty act, deeply wounding to Greek pride, and all over a dispute that's been going on for 2 centuries. That cancellation left Britain looking small, brittle and insecure. A snub buys one day of front page swagger, but it leaves a residue of distrust that can last for years, and it avoids the opportunity to discuss sensitive and important issues behind closed doors. Now the same temptation arises with the visit of Yitzhak Herzog, the President of Israel. Herzog is not Benjamin Netanyahu. He holds a largely ceremonial office. He has often clashed with Benjamin Netanyahu, and yet he does broadly support the military campaign in Gaza. Well, he's the head of state. Many Labour MPs are urging Keir Starmer to refuse to meet him when he comes to the UK. It's expected next week. Their anger is understandable. The humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is intolerable, and Herzog's language last October about Palestinians being collectively responsible was shocking. So much so that it was cited at the International Court of Justice. But the problem is, if we refuse to meet him, we silence ourselves. Diplomacy is not a reward. It's not a handshake of approval, it's a tool of influence, and you cannot shape an outcome from the corridor. You cannot test possibilities if you are not in the room. To be in the room is to be witnessing history and to be influencing history, like Hamilton, of course. We need every instrument of diplomacy we can muster right now, with Israel and Palestine, with Ukraine and Russia, with China. Snubs, boycotts and sanctions are too often the same gesture or a way of announcing our disgust, while abdicating our chance to engage. They comfort the conscience, but they do nothing to alter reality. Look at the alternatives. Israel's Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, wanted a deal to release all the hostages before the Rafah offensive. Netanyahu rejected it. If outside leaders had been able to support Halevi's line more forcefully, perhaps lives could have been saved. But influence requires contact. If Starmer refuses to see Herzog, he loses the moment to say face to face, Britain will recognise Palestine. Britain demands a ceasefire. Britain expects a viable 2-state solution. The same applies with adversaries. However repellent we may find Putin's war, and I certainly do, or Beijing's human rights record, Britain cannot afford a foreign policy based on slammed doors, and nor should ordinary British people. We should be engaging with Russia. Russia is not the Kremlin. Russia is bigger than the Kremlin. I know sometimes I talk about Russia as a code for the Kremlin and Putin. I don't mean that. I have many, many Russian friends, and I hope I continue to do so. And I believe that the biggest problem with Russia is the pervasive propaganda. I remember experiencing that at first hand, the power of television, the power of the Russian media to distort what people say. Diplomacy is not friendship. It's a persistence in the face of things we disapprove of most. It's a way of engaging with our friends, with our enemies, with our neighbours. And it's an essential part of the oil that keeps this world moving. So when I hear calls for leaders to refuse meetings, whether this is something as ridiculous as Thatcher refusing to see Menachem Begin, which I understand entirely the revulsion she felt in meeting someone who had conspired to kill 91 people, I think, in the King David Hotel, or her revulsion in meeting heads of state from Ireland and people that she felt were implicitly condoning the IRA, who had, after all, attempted to kill her in Brighton. I understand the principle, but I don't understand the performance. And snubbing feels righteous, but it is strategically sterile. Engagement may be uncomfortable, but it keeps open the one narrow path through which peace, compromise, or at least restraint might one day pass. And for that reason, I don't approve of. Have I said this? I don't approve of sanctions. But once sanctions are there, you can't take them away without looking as if you're doing somebody a favour. And that is the problem. In short, we should meet. We should keep meeting. We should speak. We should keep speaking. We should never confuse silence with strength.